Let's now speak to security expert Kabir Adamu. Dr. Adamu joins us live from Abuja. I'd like us to begin with the updates from the Ore attack. Let's take a look at what appears to be a timeline of arrest. Some 2 weeks after that attack, Amotekun Corps had made similar claims that certain arrests were made. Unlike the military, there was no parade of these suspects. How much of work do you think is ongoing as we speak, particularly to identify not just the people behind who were mastermind of this attack, but understand their ideology and the sponsors behind them?
Thank you and good evening. That is absolutely important. If we're going to have or contain this spate of violence that we're having in the country, then it's absolutely important that we not just, remove the mask behind the sponsors of this acts of, depravity and, evil, but to also ensure that we put in place measures to prevent their rebirth. Every time our security forces arrest them, because we don't take these measures further to understand who is behind them, then we see them coming up again in different forms. Having said that, I think it's quite commendable. It appears to me that our security agencies are using intelligence. It appears to me that we're seeing a synergy of effort, just like the Chief of Defense Staff mentioned. It wasn't just the effort of the military, there were other security agencies involved. So to that extent, I think we're making progress. It also tells me clearly that some of the hasty conclusions that we heard from, especially the governor of Ondo State, I think those hasty conclusions, with the benefit of hindsight now, perhaps lessons have been learned by both sides actually. And it speaks to what I would always say, where you see enhanced collaboration between the federal and state government, then the result is always better.
From the very top echelon of the Nigerian military about concerns about whether or not the 2023 election will hold. And we had the Chief of Defense Staff saying here that all hands are on deck to put everything in order ahead of that exercise. Is there a track record to insecurity and pre-election year in Nigeria?
Well, if we go back to 2014, 2015, the reason given for the postponement of the elections, if I remember well, by 2 weeks, was insecurity. And then we saw the contracting of a private military contractor who came in with mercenaries. And of course, the rest is history. We all know what happened. So yes, unfortunately, security is a major issue around the elections. And to that extent, I'm quite delighted with the preparations I am seeing at the moment. I know the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security, chaired by the Inspector General of Police and the Office of the National Security Advisor, have been meeting quite extensively. And just last week, there was a training by the police to allow for a better understanding of the newly passed Electoral Act, how it affects the role of the security agencies. So to that extent, I think it's quite good. However, I think there is a need for the INEC and the government to pass that kind of messaging to the other members of the Interagency Consultative Committee on Electoral Security. It's not just the police that plays a role in election security. The second point, which I want to emphasize, is that the fatalities are actually reducing. I run a consultancy and we keep a track of monthly fatalities. Our July fatalities stands at about 500 compared to the June figure of about 700 plus. And then if you go back to May, it was about 1,000 plus. So clearly, there is a reduction. And if this spate of intervention and security action is being kept, then of course, before the elections, we're likely to see a reduction. But my worry always is the sustainability of the security operations. It's very expensive. And of course, as you know, we're in dire times. The economy will not allow that type of sustainable economic security operations. But if we can sustain it, then yes, I believe that the elections would hold, just like the Chief of Defense Staff has assured us.
Voter empathy as occasioned by low voter turnout has been the bane of elections in Nigeria. In Anambra, it was as poor as, I think, below roughly 10% of registered voters. And one of the key issues there was security and the safety concerns of people that hindered them from coming out for election. Do you think that we have enough time to have that fixed, given the huge number of threats flying around?
So voter apathy is, attributable to several factors. Security is, of course, one of them. I think if we just isolate security and don't take into consideration the other factors, then we would not be doing justice to that. So yes, security is one of the factors, and except if the government changes the current approach with which it gives messaging around security, then I'll be a little bit worried. But I am very delighted. In the last few days, we've seen an increase in the type of public interaction between the security agencies and and sharing of information on security development. I mean, the footage you provided before we started this interview is an indication. This is the Chief of Defense Staff himself interacting with the media. Now, we also know that the spokesperson of, I think, either the defense headquarters or the army does weekly or sometimes bi-weekly reportage. I've also seen that of recent, certain other elements of the security agencies have been a little bit more forthcoming with information. So I'm hoping that this type of information will be sustained. I told you earlier on that my consultancy keeps records of this information, month-to-month fatalities. That is the type of messaging that the security agencies need to sustain so that Nigerians would not just hear the bad side of the development, but they can also hear the good sides. And that hopefully would give more confidence for Nigerians to come out and vote. But again, let's emphasize that security is just one out of the several other factors that lead to voter apathy.
Security Risk Management and Intelligence Specialist, Dr. Kabir Adamu, thank you for talking to us on the news tonight.
Thank you for having me.